can see. Oh, you're back. Oh, okay, here you are. Perfect.
Okay.
I'm recording now. So, hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel. And just a quick reminder to stay in touch if anything happens. Join my mailing list and check all the links are down below. And today, for the third time, I'm so happy. This is the first time we're connecting via Skype like this with Russell, Texas, Bentley, all the way from Donetsk. And I would like to get some update because Russell is there. So Russell, what is going on right now? How much you can tell us in this situation at this moment?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me on again, Anya. It's always a pleasure to talk to you and your friends. And all I have is good news for everybody. Some people are saying, "Oh, the operation is going too slow." Some propagandists in the West are saying that, Russia is losing. This is all. I mean, you have to remember that everything that Western media and governments say is the exact opposite of the truth. I mean, literally the opposite of the truth. And this is certainly the case. The victory of Mariupol was a huge, huge victory for us. It really advances our second phase, which is to clean up the Donbass front. We're already working on that. We're already in the process of surrounding the major concentrations of Ukrainian military power along the Donbass front. Just in the last day, huge advances have been made around Avdiivka and north near Severodonetsk, which is a very important point for us because the Ukrainians have interfered with the water supply to Donetsk and the major cities for a long time out of Severodonetsk. Now we're getting ready to liberate that. We're getting ready to move them back to an area where they can no longer interfere with our water supply. In the city of Donetsk, where I am right now, water has been a real issue since the beginning of the operation. In the center of the city, in most places, they have it only for a few hours in the day and a few hours in the night. In other areas like Petrovsky, where our house is, it's only like 2 hours every other day. So it's a real issue, and we're getting ready to take care of that issue. So the Russian military position in Ukraine, the DPR and LPR military positions are actually very good. We're advancing. I mean, it must be understood that in Mariupol, which is now completely denazified, it's no longer a combat area. I mean, there may be a few, diversants or, Nazi holdovers hiding somewhere, but there's no organized military resistance at all there anymore. And when we went into Mariupol, we were attacking or liberating, rather, a major city. It's urban combat, which is the most difficult kind of warfare. We were going in against the Azov Battalion and the Ukrainian Marines, which are the best equipped, most highly trained, supposedly most ideologically strong troops that Ukraine has. And we went in with less soldiers than there were defending the city. And, standard military doctrine says that in order to assault a defensive position, you need to have a 3-to-1 numerical superiority in order to have a reasonable expectation of victory. We didn't even have 1-to-1 equality. We had less guys than there were Nazis entrenched in Mariupol, and we won. And it's also very instructive, not just a military victory, but a moral victory, because, the most hardcore Nazis, more than 2,000, almost 2,500, maybe even more than 2,500 surrendered. They still had ammunition. They still had weapons. They were the guys who before, were stabbing the regular Ukrainian army troops in the back with their bayonets saying, "Go, advance. We'll kill you if you don't attack and fight to the last bullet. And yet when it came their turn to do that, they surrendered by the thousands while they still had, the ability to resist, and they just didn't. So it's a moral victory. It's a military victory. It certainly shows the rest of the Ukrainian army that their so-called most toughest hero troops really turned out to be cowards and losers. And so, that's going to make more Ukrainian troops decide why are we fighting and dying for a foreign, quisling government that's made up of Nazis that won't even fight themselves. And, in the the book, The Art of War by Sun Tzu, that was written more than 2,000 years ago, the most important, and I've read that book many times. It's a great book. It's very educational, not just about war, because the principles apply to a lot of other areas of life as well. But the most important point in that book is Sun Tzu said, he said, the greatest warrior is not the one who wins every battle. The most excellent warrior is the one who wins without fighting. And if you'll recall, when Mariupol had been taken, all except for the Azovstal steel plant where all the Nazis were hiding, there was a plan to, make a very heavy military assault into that area. And Putin was the one who vetoed it. He said, no. He said, we're not going to assault it. We're going to close it. You surround it and close it down so that not even a fly can get in or out. And then we'll wait. And that's what they did. So he exactly, in the Azovstal battle, he won without fighting. So he is a most excellent warrior. He's a military genius. He's the greatest statesman of modern history. And we're all very happy to be on his side. And there's no doubt that we're going to win this war. I mean, the idea that Ukraine could defeat Russia is like saying that, like saying that Mexico could defeat the United States. It's just simply not going to happen. Russia has used about less than 15% of its military power that it has so far in this battle. Ukraine was supposed to be the third largest army, the third most powerful army in all of Europe, and we're taking them. I mean, it's not been easy, but all of our objectives so far have been met, and very skillfully and victoriously so. And we're going to continue that.
Thank you so much for explaining all of this, because I know, to find someone like yourself who is there and who actually knows what's going on, it's like so important in this situation. Like, we are approaching tomorrow 3 months. Well, today is 24th, but February was shorter. We are approaching 3 months, 90 days of this intervention. And I want to say two things. I want to ask you this. Actually, first is an observation, which was very interesting. I came across this video, and actually it was on Polish channel, because there are people who are awake. Okay, not many, but there are some. And I found this guy who is doing those programs, and he's shown something very interesting. It was the video showing the surrendering of Ukrainian army. And what really struck me from that, and he was highlighting on this, was the process of them bringing the guns and the weapons to the car, leaving it inside the car, and then the Russian soldier is shaking hands. There are a few Russian soldiers by this car with each individual after he released the weapons. And I said, wow. Like, a lot of people, like, I don't know how the war operates, like, but I was thinking, this is the way how you should do it. If someone surrenders, you respect that, right? You don't, like, you don't beat up the dog that's already like on the ground. And that really made an impact on me, because this is very psychological. I cannot even wrap my mind around the human aspect and the emotions. I know a lot of those those soldiers are drugged and they take some stuff, or they are controlled, right?
Yeah, it's true.
But how can you, like, mentally go through this stage and not completely lose your mind in it? Like, you have to block certain parts of your brain. But I'm sidetracking. I want to ask you about, as I know, and correct me if I know this the way it is. Russia at this point has around 23-25% dominates this land, right? Took over this land of Ukraine, and like about a
liberated it,
like 25% approximately, right? So how do you see this now going forward? Where is this heading? And with this, Russell, I think it's important and very important, Poland getting involved in this situation more and more. How you see that?
Well, first of all, as far as your observation about the very merciful and humane way that the Russians are taking Ukrainian prisoners, of course, it must be understood that, there's two different types of Ukrainian military prisoners. There are the regular Ukrainian army, which are just soldiers doing their job, following their orders. And then there are the Nazi battalions, Azov, Donbass Battalion, Aidar, and these are real war criminals. These are Nazis, and they're a completely different deal. I mean, it's like in the Second World War, there was the German Wehrmacht, and then there was the SS. And it's the exact same type of deal as that. I can guarantee that nobody's shaking hands with the Nazis of the Azov battalion, but we are still, treating them humanely. We're not torturing them or murdering them as they have done to our prisoners, our guys who got taken prisoner. I mean, there's some really horrendous videos that the Nazis themselves have published of them slashing the throats of prisoners with their hands tied, of them shooting prisoners in the groin or in the back of the knee, and the most painful places to be hit, and then just standing there and laughing at them and kicking them while they bleed to death. So that's a whole different deal right there. And I mean, but even those Nazis have been treated humanely. The wounded have been taking good medical care. They're being fed. They're not being tortured. The Red Cross has already come in and seen the prison conditions, even of the Nazi prisoners, and they have absolutely no criticism or objections whatsoever. And this is for two reasons. I mean, first of all, above all, and it's really well known here in the DPR and in the Russian army, is that the most important skill that a soldier can have, and I mean, and I've had this philosophy for years, and I can ask other soldiers here. I have asked other soldiers here the same question: what's the most important skill that a soldier can have? And they answer the same as my opinion. They say, to not lose your humanity, to not become the monster that you are fighting against. And our guys have really done that. I mean, even, though these are, murderers and torturers that we now have captured and have complete control over, we're not treating them the same way that they treated our guys. I mean, there will be war crimes trials, and the DPR does have the death penalty. And I expect, and in fact hope, that some of these guys will be executed as an example and just as, the fulfillment of justice. But they're not going to be tortured. They're not going to be murdered before their trial. We're going to bring them to trial. We're going to show the evidence of the crimes that they committed. And I mean, the evidence is overwhelming, and the crimes are so horrendous that, no sane, reasonable person could object to the death penalty being applied in this situation. As far as Poland, I mean, again, I think this is perhaps even the already, secret agreement has been made with Russia and NATO that Russia is going to allow NATO to come in and take a certain extent of Western Ukraine. It's my belief and my hope and expectation that Russia will take Ukraine as far as and including Kiev. But anything west of Kiev, say a line, if you look on the map from Chernobyl, which is right west of Kiev on the Belarusian border, and if you draw a line down to the northern tip of Moldova, you know, everything east of that can and should and hopefully will be liberated by Russia. Everything west of that, you know, that's the area that has a hardcore Nazi ideology that has been so even since before the Second World War. You know, there's nothing there that we want or need. There's a lot of people there that hate Russians because they've been for generations brainwashed to do so. And, you know, it's not worth going in there and fighting for land that to us is useless and that our enemies may want to have themselves, you know. So I believe perhaps that the deal has already been made to, you know, balkanize or split up Ukraine into at least two sections. And, you know, NATO and Poland or whoever else can have all of the west of Ukraine that they want. But of course, this deal would have the stipulation that, you know, if NATO comes in, is allowed by Russia to come into Western Ukraine, you know, if the Polish troops or NATO troops or anything else start shooting at Russia, then it's, you know, it's a full-on kinetic war between NATO and Russia in Ukraine, and then Russia uses more than 15%. I mean, Russia, I mean, it is absolutely, any serious military analyst will tell you that Russia can defeat Ukraine, Russia can defeat NATO in Ukraine, and if it has to, Russia can defeat NATO in Europe with conventional weapons. You know, this is without any type of, you know, nuclear or, you know, weapons or anything like that. So, and, you know, all realistic military analysts understand this. So I don't think NATO, I mean, and that's the reason that no NATO troops, I mean, of course, they've sent billions of dollars of, you know, obsolete and defective weapons to the Ukrainians, but that's a far cry from sending their own soldiers and becoming, you know, liable to retaliation by Russia. As Vladimir Putin specifically and exactly said, and I quote, he said, if Russia is attacked, we will destroy the places that these attacks came from, and we will destroy the places that the orders for these attacks came from. So he's been open and honest about everything all the way down the line. And he's made it clear to NATO that if they get involved in this war, then they're getting involved all the way, which means that they also become targets.
So this is very interesting perspective that you just shared when you said that there was perhaps some kind of agreement between Russia and NATO allowing this merging now between Poland and Ukraine to take place. Because I know that you're aware, what we are talking at this point is that Ukrainian citizens have completely full rights in Poland as if they were Polish citizens and vice versa.
Excuse me, you got that backwards. Polish citizens have rights in Ukraine as if they were Ukrainian citizens.
Yes, but in Poland, that's what I understood from information. It will be the same thing with those who remain here, those refugees. They have exactly the same rights. So, which I look at this also as voters, future voters, okay, because that's a significant number, Russell. We are talking like over 2 million people, right? Again, maybe not all of them physically present, but let's say even half of it. So 1 million voters, it's quite important when a lot of people don't vote anymore, right?
Of course.
And so interesting perspective, you said that was maybe done, you know, behind the scenes. So this if that is this the case, which is, so then Polish president going there again, not speaking for every Polish citizen. Let's highlight this here, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, speaking for a certain group of globalists that he represents. He's going there, he's making his spiel there, and showing as if, and I know the bullshit, okay? I know shenanigans, but I'm thinking, how they gonna pull this off if this is the case? So he's pretending the friendship, the union, the merging, as if brothers, and then behind the scenes something else, or maybe they are actually really doing this. I mean, it's not genuine, none of it is, but they are really doing this to come closer and closer to Russia with NATO. So like NATO doesn't have any deal with Russia. It's just they are coming closer and closer. So I think maybe that is the case. And of course, first and foremost, it's about the money, right? For the,
of course.
Yes, for the military and the guns and everything. I don't know. I don't like what they are doing, and I literally I trust God in this process, because yesterday before I went to sleep, I want to ask you what you think of this. Before I was going to sleep, I received this message, almost as if God told me, maybe Poland needs this very, very hard wake-up call to see what a lot of Polish people are not aware. They hate Russia.
Mm-hmm.
They hate I mean, there are reasons for it too, okay? But if there wouldn't be a propaganda that sustaining this mindset and not being objective and trying to show sides of the story, right? You cannot just present one story. So in a way, I understand why people are this way, because many people don't look deeper. But I received this message and I said, this will be very cruel, but if Poland goes there and there is a conflict and it will be brutal, Russell, this will be brutal. Poland will really be kicked in the butt, like very badly, because no one is going to come to the rescue. No one.
That's true. I mean, the victory that Russia has accomplished so far with this liberation denazification operation, it goes way, way, way beyond just the military victories. I mean, first of all, the economic war, which is also a real war, which has been waged against Russia for decades now. Russia is winning. They are in the process. I mean, right now the ruble is at 53 rubles to the dollar. That's the best it's been in years, in probably decades. It's the best performing national currency in the world right now. And at the same time, people, governments, banks all over the world are dumping the dollar and the euro, and they're going to more solid currencies. Europe is going to suffer economically and humanitarianly this year extremely. They have, and it's really, to me, it's a mistake to say that, the directors of the European Union made some tremendously stupid mistakes, because nobody can be that stupid. What they did by the sanctions is they have now cut themselves off, first of all, from fertilizer, and they did, and it was, first of all, from energy, then from fertilizer, from either importing it from Russia or producing it themselves, and also from Russian grain, and foodstuffs. So there's going to be, if not a genuine famine where people starve to death, although that may possibly be the case, there's going to be a very, very serious food crisis in the European Union this year. There was a German government economist. This is a guy with, some credentials and some, inside information. And he recently said, by the end of this year, it is not unrealistic to expect that a loaf of bread will cost 10 euros in the European Union. 10 euros for a loaf of bread. And so, what's some, regular working guy? I mean, like the average working wage in most of Europe is like 250 to 500 euros a month.
Yes.
And so, who's going to work, for a whole month for a paycheck that's worth 50 loaves of bread, if you can get it? Because the thing is, the food scarcity is going to be to such a depth and such an extent that even all the people that have 10 euros to buy a loaf of bread, not all of them are going to be able to buy it, because there's just not going to be that much bread. I had a good friend I talked to the other day. He was in Panama, and he told me he went to the grocery store there. A kilogram of flour, wheat flour in Panama, is $12 US right now. And it's only going to get worse. And after he told me that, I went to the grocery store here, of which there's no food shortages here whatsoever. And this is Donbass. This isn't even in Russia,
Wow.
And in the grocery store here in Donetsk, a 5 kilogram bag of flour was 127 rubles, so, 2.5 or $3 for 5 kilograms instead of 11 for one.
Russell, and you are and this is the area of the conflict, which normally people would think this will be the highest price point, right?
Yeah.
Like logically, like where you are, that would be the most expensive, the most challenging.
And it's not just that it's the conflict area, it's that, for 8 years we've been economically blockaded. Everything for the last 8 years has come only through Russia, but yet, we've, survived, and not only survived, but thrived, because we have, held our ground. And, actually life is better. It's gotten better every year since I've been here, since 2014. And I mean, another example is the cost of fuel, propane and gasoline. I see right now the average price of gasoline in the United States is $4.50. In Europe, it's much, much higher than that. Here, for 95 octane, which is not even regular gas, it's like the better level of gasoline, it costs 52 rubles for a liter. And now, recently that was, 2 months ago, a ruble, the ruble was trading at, over 75.
Yes, I remember.
And up to 80. So now that the ruble's come down, I guess the price has gone up, as far as like from changing dollars, but people still get paid the same here in rubles. So it's the same as it always was, and it's not, and you understand, it's like with the price of gold. It's not so much that the ruble is going up, it's that the dollar is going down.
Exactly. It's exactly like with precious metals. Exactly like that. Yes. But that's the thing with gold. I always highlight this on my channel, like precious metals, if you can have a little even on the side, just hold on, because in all those times in history in uncertainty, that's one thing that at least you store some values. You store it. If it really gets difficult, and like you cannot count on this fiat money, even if it's ruble or dollar, whatever it is, it doesn't matter, because it's all manipulated. Even precious metals, but it's all manipulated. So
but you understand, but I just want to make a point here.
Yeah.
You understand that Vladimir Putin has now announced that the ruble is now pegged to gold. 5,000 rubles is worth 1 gram of gold.
Yes, I'm so aware of it, and I'm actually waiting because he's going to announce, this is until the end of June, and he's going to announce in June what's next. And then we're gonna see, because it's backed by gold. It's backed by real asset.
Mm-hmm.
It has a point of reference and a value, and it's actually not only gold but other assets as well. But gold is one of them. So I'm curious what's going to happen, because in June, when he will announce, I think June 30th it is, the end of June. Yeah, we see.
Mm-hmm.
We see how this will change again everything. And I assure you, it's actually absolutely arrogant leadership. It's like you're losing words to talk about those people. You know, you're losing words.
Mm-hmm.
How bad they are in those positions. But let me ask you one more question, because I really would like to know how the people, because I was watching, videos from that region, and I look at those regular people on the streets and their lives, how they have been affected, how those people are now feeling, how they are rebuilding, how this process of, taking care of the damage looks like now, Russell.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've been to Mariupol many times now over the last few months, and the first time I was there, probably in the first 2 weeks of March, it was still heavy fighting throughout the city. There were blown up buses, blown up tanks in the middle of the road. People were frightened to be on the street. They were very desperate. And every time that I've been to Mariupol since then, things have gotten better. I mean, literally, the Russian Federation and the DPR are bringing in multi-hundreds of tons of humanitarian aid daily, multi-hundred tons daily of food, water, medicine. They have access points set up all over the city where they have electric generators where people can charge their phones or their flashlights or their radios. There's people, they're beginning to bring in, a civil administration now that, there are, places set up where people can go and say, okay, I've got 5 kids. I need more help than just 1 box of food a month. Where they can say, I'm trying to find my mother who hasn't been seen for a month, where they can say, I was a victim of a war crime by the Azov battalion, and I know who it was, and I want to make a report. So, I mean, really, civilization is coming back to Mariupol. I mean, it's a very hard-hit city. I mean, it's, it's not as bad as, like, say, Stalingrad was, or Sirte in Libya, or Fallujah in Iraq, where basically the Nazis went in and just flattened everything. But probably.
Russell, can I ask you, so to interrupt you, can I ask you, is it like Sarajevo damage almost?
Yeah, I would say that it's like that, probably 40% of the housing there is uninhabitable and will have to be torn down and rebuilt. But another city that was legendary for how bad it was destroyed was Grozny. And I've been to Grozny a couple of years ago. And now, and it was really leveled to the ground. But now it's one of the most modern, clean, beautiful cities in the world. It's absolutely pristine. The skyscrapers are so cool. They have like a light show on the skyscrapers at night. It's very peaceful. It's completely safe and well run. There's no homeless people. There's no hungry people, and that's what we're going to do to Mariupol. We're already beginning to do that. Electricity and water are being restored, more and more every day. Food's being brought in, electricity's, water, everything that people need to survive in a decent fashion is being provided, and more will happen every day. Mariupol will be rebuilt. Putin has announced that they're not going to try and rebuild the Azovstal steel plant. They're going to tear it down and make a park, you know, or like a beach resort out of it, you know. But that steel plant actually was notorious for the amount of pollution that it was pumping into the Azov Sea. And so it'll be, you know, I mean, so instead of making it a dirty industrial area, they're going to make Mariupol into, you know, like a miniature Sochi or something, you know, where it's going to be beach resort and, you know, hotels and restaurants and stuff like that. You know, it's, you know, it's been tough. It's not going to be easy for some years, but it is going to be rebuilt. And when it's done, it's going to be, you know, orders of magnitude better than it ever was.
Thank you, Russell. You know, actually, I wanted to end here, but I just got one more question from what you were just saying.
Okay.
I want to ask you, in that Azovstal place, I really don't know at all about how this is structured and all those details, but I have a strong sense there has, besides the working part, there has been some stuff, very bad things going on underneath that. How much do you know? What, I mean, I don't know, I'm just saying, this is me. I don't know much, like human trafficking or things like that. I just feel things completely not related to the official operation of this area.
Absolutely.
Am I correct?
No. It was a military position throughout the 8 years that the Nazis have controlled Mariupol. And in fact, when they came in 2014, you know, Mariupol was a very strongly pro-Russian city before the Maidan coup, and they resisted very strongly. They resisted like Odessa did, almost as much as Donetsk and Lugansk did. And when the Nazis came in, I mean, they immediately began a pogrom of terror. You know, they started, you know, disappearing people off the streets, torturing, murdering, making examples of them. And a lot of that stuff went on there in the Azovstal basements at the Mariupol airport. There was a huge prison / torture chamber that they called the library. Before the Russians started coming into Mariupol, civilians there were reporting that there was a frenzied effort, that there were backhoes day and night working in these fields outside of the Mariupol airport to dig up the mass graves that had been put there of all the victims, you know. And of course, the same thing. I mean, it's, you know, really, you think about this stuff and it's like, you know, it's like a novel or something where, like a James Bond novel with, you know, the evil villain in his lair. And so, of course, the Azovstal basements would be the place for that. You know, I mean, you know, completely, you know, disorienting and terrifying to bring someone down there where no one can hear you scream and they can do anything they want, you know. And I want to mention, too, that one of the things, you know, one of the other advantages about the way that we allowed these Nazis to surrender is that, you know, anyone now who says, oh, there's no Nazis in Ukraine because Zelensky is a Jew is either an idiot or a liar or both. Because as we took these prisoners from Azov, you know, as soon as we made sure they didn't have weapons, it was like, all right, take off your shirt. Let's see your tattoos. And, you know, thousands of them, I mean, at least multi-hundreds of them of the 2,500 that were captured, you know, they had swastikas, they had the SS lightning bolts, they had, you know, pictures of Hitler. And a lot of them, not just Nazi tattoos on their bodies, but satanic tattoos. You know, the pentagram, the goat head, stuff like that. I mean, so
the symbols,
yeah, of Satanism,
Mm-hmm.
And so, guys like that, you give them a gun, you tell them, you can do anything you want. You can rob anyone you want. You can rape anyone you want. You can murder anyone you want with complete impunity. Oh, and here's a great place you can do it down here in the secret basement. Of course, what they did is beyond imagination of normal human beings. But it's important to note, I mean, that these guys are not just, to call them Nazis is absolutely no exaggeration by any means. I mean, it's like calling a dog, or a chair. That's what they are, but even more so now it's coming out, that these are really devil worshiping Satanists, that believe in things like human sacrifice and, who glorify and causing suffering and death, and guys like that can never be redeemed.
But it's also selling parts of the body. It's a great business, no?
Yes.
And this is all connected. It's for the experiments, it's for the satanic rituals, and it's also to get the goods, to get the stuff, like parts of the body, So Russell, I know this is not happy ending to this conversation, but I think it's very important for people to know.
Let me, if we can talk about like maybe one more minute, I do want to end on a happy note. And I want to say that, the victory of Russia over, the denazification and liberation of Ukraine by Russia is absolutely inevitable. It cannot be stopped by Ukraine. It cannot be stopped by NATO. I mean, it's like the sun coming up after the dark of night. It's gonna happen. That inevitably, that certainly. And of course, if NATO does come in, to militarily contest it, then Russia can handle all of NATO. We can go to the English Channel. I mean, in fact, Russia has been in Paris before, and if we have to, and we've been in Berlin before, and we've been in Prague, and we've been in Warsaw.
No more conflict, Russell. I think, I mean, this is different. This is different intervention. I'm talking. I really hope that, well, I don't know, those countries getting involved. I don't want more conflicts further. No.
Nobody does, and especially Russia. I mean, the people who have to fight the war are the ones who hate it the most and who are against it the most. I mean, but what I'm saying is this is truly the battle of good against evil. The military conflict here is only a small part. The economic conflict is going to go on for a lot longer. And I mean, and if you understand, I mean, if you remember when Madeleine Albright, the hideous beast that was the Secretary of State under Clinton, when they did the economic sanctions against Iraq. And when a reporter asked her, she said, well, 500,000 children have died because of these economic sanctions in Iraq, 500,000 children. And Madeleine Albright said, well, we think it was worth it, I mean, so you got to understand that the economic war is also a very, very deadly and real war too. In fact, as the great political scientist Michael Parenti pointed out, economic violence is just physical violence in slow motion. So the economic war is going to continue. The political war, the information war, these are all going to continue. Ukraine, this is the war of evil against good for the future of humanity. And I'm here to tell you that we're going to win it. I mean, it's not going to be over anytime soon, and it ain't going to be fun or easy, but we are going to win it.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad you're safe, you're well, and that I could connect with you again. I hope this will be recorded and everyone can watch this video because this is on Skype today. Lots of love to you. Thank you from my audience for speaking up and doing this and standing up for the truth. And so important now, I don't do as much as you do there, but at least I can participate with my channel, and giving people this
We
information.
all have our part to play. Everybody can make a contribution, and it is by what we do that we show which side we're on.
Yes.
And
Thank you.
Thank you very much too, Anya, for everything that you do.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys for watching, and until next time. Thank you, everyone.